It was pretty good. Obviously, as a Cowboys fan, we didn't play till Monday, and honestly, that kind of makes the Sunday games a little nicer because I can just, watch all of them, watch Red Zone, not really have to worry about my team. So it was a fun week three. A lot of good games, a lot of good action. So overall, pretty solid.
Good, yeah. Well, mine was pretty good, but obviously we'll get into that later. So yeah, we'll dive right in. Game was going on when we were doing the last podcast, but start with the Carolina Panthers. No real shock here. Took care of business against the Houston Texans as we expected. We both picked Carolina to win and cover. Carolina wins 24-9. Obviously, I think the bigger news in regards to the win was Christian McCaffrey got hurt. He's gonna be out for. I didn't put him on IR, but it's looking like going to be a couple of weeks with a hamstring issue. They still haven't ruled him out for week 4. And so in came in Chuba Hubbard, who looks solid, but regardless, too, Panthers had kind of control of the game. At least I feel at that point. But storyline continues to be in regards to this game, though. Really, just Panthers defense, and Sam Darnold too a little bit. Just he's looking a little bit better. Really, the Panthers defense. I think they had 4 or 5 sacks this game. Obviously, was against Davis Mills, but still, they've been pretty consistent the first 3 weeks. John, what are your thoughts on Matt Rule and the gang and their undefeated start here in Carolina?
Obviously, they've been impressive. I think their defense, like you said, has really been the highlight so far. The only thing I will say that is, just to pump the brakes a little bit, and that's because them and then the Broncos, who we'll talk about later, haven't had like the gauntlet of a 3-0 start like maybe the Raiders have, where they played some of the elite teams. That Saints win was obviously very impressive, but they beat the Jets and the Texans, and so you can't really take a whole lot away from those games because those are games they should absolutely win. But that being said, like you talked about, their defense was dominant in both of those, so it's impressive nonetheless because in the NFL, no matter who you play, winning is still difficult. Anybody can win on any given day if they come out with the right scheme, the right game plan, then things just go right. So good start for the Panthers. Definitely, the way you want to start this season. And I think for them, the real test of their schedule still isn't really fully coming up until, the end of the year. But overall, honestly, with this sort of start and just with the way that their schedule is looking, I think your prediction of them making the playoffs could definitely be a reality.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can continue that pace. But obviously, very impressive to start of the year. So good for them. And in regards to Christian McCaffrey owners, probably glad that they had the extra 3 days rest. We'll see his status this upcoming week.
I know we're not talking about it until next episode, but for me being Cowboys fan, we play them next week.
Okay.
Part of me is just a little glad that we don't have to get torched by CMC.
Yeah, but so we'll see what happens there. But alrighty, so going on to the games that occurred Sunday. First one on the board is the Buffalo Bills. They took care of business at home in a very windy game, 43-21 against the Washington football team. Really, just never in doubt once Buffalo got ahead. Um, just my quick thoughts. I mean, Josh Allen's back. Took a few weeks to really get going, but they kind of found their mojo here. And then in regards to Washington, I mean, their offense is still kind of finding its way, especially, they were expecting Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's also new to the system, and now Taylor Heineke's kind of being inserted, and it's still not perfect. And then their defense, I think, were kind of definitely disappointing. I think we all expected better. Like I mentioned last episode, I mean, from that D line that I especially was impressed by. It just seems to be there's no depth behind them. So really, just especially third, fourth quarter, kind of gassing out, and then still finding a way to fill in the pieces with Will Fuller and the rookie Jamin Davis. So yeah, things not looking great for Washington right now. Obviously, they lose another one. Heck, they could almost be 0-3 if it wasn't for a few bad calls. While Bills, 2-1, looking good. I really don't have much to add. Like I said, I didn't watch this game live, but I watched it back. There's not much really to take away other than I feel like than that. But John, you have anything to add in regard to this thumping by the Bills?
Uh, I mean, this is what I sort of expected out of this game. This is one of the few picks that we disagreed on that I did get right. Kind of a rough week for me. Um, But
Pick it
I
up at the
mean,
end.
yeah, I mean, I picked it up at the end there, but still didn't feel super confident. I think it's just because the riskier picks that I decided to go off on, those are the ones I ended up getting wrong. And so I could have played it safe, not, and I would have been all right. Anyway, this game, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about Washington as of right now. I've been disappointed by their defensive line. It seems like this is the strong point of this offense. Obviously, a lot of first round picks invested in this, or sorry, this defense. A lot of first round picks invested into this defensive line, and I mean they got 0 sacks against Josh Allen. Yes, he's mobile, but that's we've seen mobile quarterbacks that are getting tackled by other teams. So no real excuse there. Allowing 43 points, if you do that in the NFL, you're going to lose. So I don't really have much to say for Washington right now. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's time to get a little bit worried about Washington when it comes to the division. Obviously, it's still early, week 3, but they have not looked super impressive so far, and so they're going to need to change something to really get it going. And like you talked about, like I just said, I think it starts with the defensive line. They got to get pressure on quarterbacks. They got to get people to the ground to make plays a little easier for their secondary. For the Bills, I mean, like you said, Josh Allen, he's back. I mean, he wasn't really ever gone, but he wasn't having the crazy games that he was last year. And this was him just getting back into form. Almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, didn't get sacked, like we said. Added another touchdown on the ground. So monster performance from him. I just wish he would throw it a little more to Stephon Diggs for my fantasy teams.
Oh, I will say too, like they got the run game going. They Zach Moss
Yep.
13 carries, 60 yards. Devin Singletary 11 and 26. Josh only had to run it 4 times himself. So I think that's good for Josh's long term health. But yeah, just like you mentioned too, last point in regards to Washington, just I mean, I think this is where they're missing, Ryan Kerrigan out, last year. Maybe they're missing that extra depth guy to
Mm-hmm.
spell just the general defensive line. So maybe I'm not sure if there's anyone out there. I'm not even sure there's any free agents I can think off the top of my head that they can go and grab. But who knows? Like maybe trade deadline, if they're still in the mix, maybe they make a move for a depth edge rusher because they need one. But yeah,
I think
definitely.
like Olivia Vernon's still a free
That's true.
agent.
But he's coming off. I think he tore his Achilles back in January or
Yeah,
something.
and
He had a really.
he's
It was like
he's getting older
Achilles or
too.
meniscus, where it's like it's going to be a year at least. So
Yeah, that's the only name I can think of
yeah,
that's notable.
yeah. I almost say Greg Hardy, but he's in the UFC now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Just last point, my pick of Washington going to the playoffs, winning the division, upsetting the Bucks, totally not looking good. And honestly, don't believe in it at all now. So, like,
Maybe when Fitz comes back.
regardless, like I just don't know this. Like, especially like until they address that with the 17 game season, like the wear and tear on the fact that they're already kind of gassing out in the second half of games in week 4. Like, yeah, they really need to address that depth. So I have not a lot of confidence in that. So it's unfortunate for me, but especially as a Cowboys fan, though, and we'll talk about them in the rest of the division later. Looking good for them. So that is Buffalo and Washington. Going on to another game, another kind of a blowout. The Cleveland Browns definitely gave Justin Fields a welcome to the NFL moment. 26-6, they beat the Browns. I mean, the Browns on offense look solid. But in regards to the Bears, I'll go first real quick just because. But yeah, I mean, obviously Justin Fields didn't have a great game. I want to say that. I mean, obviously he didn't play
Right.
well, but he was not put in the greatest positions. I mean, even Dan Orlovsky said it on ESPN, and my guy Chris Sims has said it. Like they literally just stuck him in the Andy Dalton offense and expected him to play just to be like Andy Dalton, which they didn't play any of his strengths really. And people, even once again, Miles Garrett said after the game, like, so it's not just people making excuses. Like this was like they just didn't. It was just it was just a bad game plan. That didn't
Right.
help that he didn't have a great performance. But yeah, it's really on the coaches to put them in winning positions, and he didn't do that, Matt Nagy. And honestly, once again, I mentioned Chris Sims. He mentioned just speculation. Could it be that Matt Nagy's just trying to buy more time, buy another year? He knows his team's not that good. I don't know. Regardless, for me personally, I think it's just honestly, I think it's time for Matt Nagy to go. Like he's had Mitchell Trubisky, and then granted, it wasn't his guy that he drafted He had Mitchell Trubisky, and remember that first game? He was even saying then he had to like scale back the playbook for Mitch Trubisky. Like he was already kind of creating excuses, and I feel like he's already doing the same thing with Justin Fields in year one. Saying, "Oh, he wasn't ready, this and that." Well, I mean, and I know the rookies haven't had a great start, but we're in a day of age, like we've mentioned before, where a lot of these quarterbacks they don't need to sit a year. Trey Lance is probably the only one that really needs to sit a year, but even Justin, like once again, just not a lot of like read option where he can keep it, not a lot of anything like that. Not even like what the Bears at the end of last season, the Mitch Trubisky, like just some play action rollouts, nothing off that. It was just shotgun. Hey, we want you to dissect this Bears offense like you're Patrick Mahomes, but newsflash, he's not Patrick Mahomes, and you don't even have the offensive system or wide receivers like the Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, Matt Nagy was brought in to be an offensive mind, and yeah, he's had a lot of flashy kind of looks every now and then, but really, I think he's failed as an offensive coordinator and as a coach. And I think we're all surprised, especially you and I were surprised last year that he was one of the few coaches that didn't get let go. But yeah, I honestly, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm kind of rooting for him to go. I know we talk about getting Cliff fired, but really Matt Nagy needs to go as well. Like, I'm sorry, maybe he needs to go back to being an OC, and maybe that will get him back on track. It's just the reality of not just the NFL, but of certain life, just not ready to be just not head coach material. I think he's one of those guys like Romeo Crennel's a better coordinator than head coach. But that's enough of my little rant about Matt Nagy. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this Browns-Bears game and Justin Fields' first start?
I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I had Justin Fields on the fantasy start list last week. Obviously, a lot of our own friends have been calling me out for that, and it burned me even in our dynasty league. With you, I lost my game by like 4 points. It started Baker Mayfield, who I had on my bench, who didn't have an amazing game, but he obviously did way better than Fields. I would have won. So even I got burned by that, and I was wrong. But overall, like you said, it's pressed to blame Justin Fields for this game when they had, I think, 47 total yards of offense. That goes far beyond the quarterback. That goes to just the scheme, the game plan, and like you ultimately mentioned, Matt Nagy. I agree with you. I think he needs to be fired. And like you said, we talk a lot about Cliff Kingsbury, but at least he wins the games that he's supposed to win. At least he shows some like good things on the field. It's just for us, we know how talented their team could be, that we expect more. For the Bears, they're not even doing the things that we know they should, right? You're playing Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney with a terrible offensive line. And shame on me for expecting Matt Nagy to understand that and to try to create plays for Justin Fields to be successful against them. I was expecting, like you said, read option plays, put those guys in the option, force them to make decisions, and start to beat them on the ground. That way, that can open up the pass game. That can open up a lot of other things because you're specifically attacking those guys in ways that maybe they can't fully respond to. Obviously, I'm not doubting that those two athletes couldn't do it, but just put them in tough spots. They didn't do that. Obviously, I mean, Fields was sacked 9 times. Like that. I don't know. It was a putrid overall performance from the Bears. David Montgomery couldn't even get going, only 34 yards on the ground. None of the receivers were able to do a whole lot. It was a bad performance from Chicago. Good win for Cleveland. They took care of business. Wasn't the prettiest game on their end, but they did what they needed to do and they got the win. So, yeah, good stuff on Cleveland. But I agree with you. I think Matt Nagy needs to go.
Yeah, and in regards to you didn't have the greatest week fantasy wise, but let's be honest. Like once again, like I forgot to read the spread picks, but like we're not always going to be right, and like even the experts, the fantasy experts, like Matthew Bear, like I listen to his ESPN podcast, and he'll mention all the time, like I was wrong on this. Like a lot of it is speculation.
Yep.
Once the great Michael Scott once said, per Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, and
listen, I have no problem being wrong. I admit when I'm wrong, and I'm going to be wrong on a lot of these picks because my goal with like the fantasy post is I'm not going to tell you that you should start Derrick Henry because that's obvious. I'm
Yeah.
trying to tell you the guys who are kind of in the roots, the weeds,
Just
the
guys that
people
you
that are deep
like.
on your bench.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the obscure guys, not the obvious. We're not like if you have questions about starting Derrick Henry, like just
Yeah, like
you should
there's
you
10
don't need to be.
quarterbacks that you should obviously be starting. So I'm not going for those guys. I'm going
Yeah.
for the guy that, is deep on your bench. And maybe you're like me, who you had Baker Mayfield, felt like Chicago was a little bit of a tough matchup. So you're looking for someone else. So I have no problem being wrong. It's just I do get a little annoyed when people only want to point out the incorrect stuff. Like, yeah, I know I was wrong. I put them on there and then they didn't do very well. So
It
anyway,
happens. But yeah, just FYI, I forgot to mention. I mean, I'll mention it at the end. But as of right now, John is still the picks leader. The spoiler alert in our
it's
picks.
close
And I
though.
looked at the experts like at CBS, and like all of them are like, except for like one guy, but it's only week after week 3 too. All of them are like either 500 or below, which where we're at. Like, or even you, because we also do it with my parents. Like we're all around that same area as the experts. And then except for like one guy was like 700. He's just on a heater, man. But who knows? Like we'll check it at the end of the season. Like he could easily like I was on the heater last season at the beginning of the year, then I almost lost it. So just it ain't easy. Like the pick game. Trust me, if it was easy, we would be putting money on this and making more money. But there's a reason you and I. Well, also it's illegal here in Texas, but there's a reason we don't do that. Is because like it's kind of a crapshoot. So it's like so anyway. Like I said, we'll go on to the games. But yeah, like for example, this next game, thank goodness we didn't bet because the Detroit Lions kept a very close, almost beat the Baltimore Ravens, but the Ravens, it took, in case you didn't know, a Justin Tucker NFL record breaking kick to win them this game 19-17. Granted, the Ravens probably should have won should have been ahead earlier. Marquise Hollywood Brown did not have a good game. Dropped at least 2, maybe 3 touchdowns. Granted, I already love how Lamar's already trying to build him back up, so good on him. But Marquise Hollywood Brown probably shouldn't tweet going forward. Remember that tweet he said last year? You can't tweet anymore after that because everyone's going to bring that up. I'm just forewarning you. But regardless, I mean, I didn't get to watch much of this game. But we'll say, I mean, even though, Ravens kind of blew some opportunities, Detroit hung tough. I mean, and I like the direction that Dan Campbell's going with this team. We've already seen through the first 2 weeks, even the Packer game. I know it got away from the second half, but really it was because the rain, Jared Goff, and that. But Lions have been a tough, at least like a tough competitive team, and you see, we all joke about Dan Campbell biting kneecaps, but I did kind of see it as Matt Patricia, but it's starting out good. We'll see how it progresses. Obviously, he's only year one. They have a bunch of picks and things to keep building on, but I do like what I'm seeing from Dan Campbell and the gang, and it's just a heartbreaking way to lose a game, especially the way I watched that live. Just it bounces on the crossbar and then it was like when number 2 hit that shot against the Sixers, it just bounced, hit front rim, and then bounced away. It was basically like that. That's just a gut punch, man. Especially since they mentioned in like a couple of years prior when they played. He also hit like a pretty long kick too to win that one, and I remember that game because I was in high school listening to that in my car. So, but yeah. Anyways, John, do you have any further thoughts in regards to the Ravens barely eking out a win against the Detroit Lions?
The Ravens, man, they're just getting in some crazy games this year, right? Like the Raiders won, that was wild, and they barely scraped by Kansas City, and now they're barely beating Detroit. They're fans.
Living
I
on the edge of
feel,
their seat, man.
yeah, I feel for them because every week it's just a roller coaster of a ride. And honestly, same for Detroit. But the tough part is that the Ravens are coming out on top here, and Detroit they have the tendency to come out on bottom. So I'm sure it was an exciting game. Like you, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of it. Good on Detroit. Like you said, they're competitive. They've been competitive in every single game for the most part. In the first 2, there were points where obviously they weren't looking too good, but yeah, I mean overall it looked like it was a scrappy game, and I can't imagine being a Lions fan after the ways that they lost the last 2 weeks, the inconsistencies. They're going to beat teams in the league, and then you lose, and that's gotta suck.
Yeah. So, All right, we won't spend too much time on that one. So that was that. Just a quick note on the Ravens. I mean, they can easily be 0-3 too. Another team
Yeah.
where ball bounces a few ways, they could easily be in the hole. But that's football. So Ravens 2-1, Lions, like John mentioned, 0-3. So now we're gonna go on to another team that's 0-3, the Baltimore, the Indianapolis Colts fall to the Tennessee Titans, 25-16. I think we both kind of expected that. But regardless, I mean, even with Carson Wentz, uh, like we kind of foreshadowed, in our picks, tough start to the schedule, and this has pretty much gone the worst way that the Colts have wanted. Like I mentioned, 0-3. For the Titans, though, it seems like it's a good kind of get back statistically. Statistically, it was a good get back game for Ryan Tannehill. I think he was lacking in the touchdown department. Had 3 passing touchdowns today, so good to get that stats on him, and especially without AJ Brown, like John mentioned in the fantasy post. Just unfortunate week. AJ Brown was out this game, and I'm not sure of his status going forward. I know that's a concern. But regardless, it was a good win for the Titans and for the Colts. Like, just watching that game, I mean, Carson Wentz, obviously some blame on him, but really, I think the Colts just need to be more patient with the run. And I don't know if that's on Carson or if that's on Frank Reich for play calling. Once again, we're not in their ear. We don't know if maybe Carson's audibling out of runs. Who knows? But I think they need to get back to running the ball and just building off that. Carson's good, but he's not. At least right now, especially right now, he's not playing at the level that he was. The MVP level back in Philly. I know they have kind of same system, some talent around him, but I think they need to. Sorry, I keep forgetting about that. They need to play through the run and build off that because right now, and maybe it's the health, but right now Carson Wentz is not capable of just putting the team on his back and throwing them the victory. It's just not happening. So yeah, that's my opinion in regards to that. John, what was your opinion in regards to this divisional matchup?
I'm totally in agreement with you here. I think the game, for the most part of that first half, was really close. I think they went into halftime only down by 4. The Colts did, and then they come out their first drive after halftime. They kick a field goal, then they recover a fumble. So now they're down 1, and they got a chance to take the lead. They go 5 plays, they don't get anything. They punt, and the Titans get a touchdown. Now they're down 8 points. They go down and get a field goal. Like, it just, I don't know. It just felt like the second half they really stalled out. And I mean, I didn't really fully watch this game, but even just looking at the stats, Jonathan Taylor only had 10 carries and he had 64 yards. That's 6 yards a carry. I don't get why you throw the ball 37 times. You only ran it 18 times. The run was working as a whole, including a 7-yard loss. They were averaging 4.8 yards per carry on the game. So, I feel like that's on Frank Reich there. Like you said, I can't really blame Carson Wentz. Obviously, he's not having that level of performance, but the guy has 2 sprained ankles. What do you want from him in this game? I think that you have to, with a quarterback coming off an injury like that, why is he having to throw 37 times? Even like we talked about with Matt Nagy and the Bears, you got to put your players in position to succeed. It seems like Jonathan Taylor and the talent that he is, that's the direction you want to go. I know that Quentin Nelson did get hurt. I think he got carted off. I don't know the status of that. So maybe that was part of the reason that they shied away from the run is they felt like they couldn't necessarily get things going once he was gone. Like I said, I didn't watch, so I don't know how the run looked after that point. But still, like you said, I think you got to be more patient with the run, keep it more involved, especially against a Titans team. We know the offensive prowess that they do have, and we know how good Derrick Henry is. So allowing them to continuously get the ball back over and over and just do these long drives, I don't feel like that was the recipe for success. I think that they needed to, when they had their opportunities, they needed to try and go on those sort of long drives that Tennessee is known for, keep the ball out of their hands and just put up points, and they didn't do that. So 0-3 start, that's tough. I still think they're talented enough to claw their way out of here. I don't know what their schedule looks like moving forward.
Still tough. Let me pull it up. Sorry, go ahead.
But I mean, yeah, it's that's not a hole that you want to start in. It's going to be hard, and at this point, it's just you don't have a lot of room for error moving forward.
So schedule at Miami next Sunday, And then the following week on Monday night at Baltimore. Then you get a break with the Texans the week after, but then you go to San Francisco the following week on Sunday night, and then you have the Titans again, and then you get a little break with the Jets and Jaguars, and then you get the Bills and Bucks. So, man, like
Yeah,
I forget.
that's
I
tough.
probably should have. I forgot if I put it in the doc, which hopefully I did. If not, I'll go back and listen to it. Did I? I don't think I had the Colts in. Did I? Did we either of us have the Colts in?
I don't think either of us had the Colts in.
Okay, so we're looking good there. Looking good. But
Yeah, but that's a tough stretch of games. Honestly, off the top of my head, that looks like 3 wins maybe out of there,
yeah.
unless they can pull off some
And
upsets.
honestly, like Houston isn't looking like a lock like at this point because Houston's a
Right.
competitive team, especially if I think Tyrod should be back by then. Like, so we'll see what happens there. But with the Colts, just we'll see what happens, man. It's just tough for the Colts, but a good win for the Titans. They stay in. I think they take the division lead at this point. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So now they're on top of the division, kind of like we expected. But now to get to the next divisional game, which this division's all sorts of whack. I mean, in terms of what we expected in the prior to the season. But the LA Chargers go into Arrowhead and beat the Kansas City Chiefs 30-24. Justin Herbert had a great game, 4 touchdowns, 280 yards. Mike Williams has really been showing out this year. He had 120 yards receiving, 122 yards receiving to be exact, 2 touchdowns, including the go-ahead one late in the game, which honestly, I was watching that guy. I still don't understand I mean, I understand the thought process, but man, like passing the ball, why don't you just run it in and eat a clock? Whatever, it worked. So can't really say much. But then they missed the extra point. I was like, man, y'all got lucky. Kansas City didn't score a touchdown and then kicked the. Anyway, regardless, Chargers win. But I think the bigger theme here is just obviously Kansas City, huge loss, especially at home where they're notorious for home field advantage at Arrowhead. Even then they have fans there, so like last year. But really, I mean, story of this game, really just a few weeks. Mahomes was just the Chiefs as a whole was a sloppy. That goes to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yes, he had 100 yards. I think he also ran a touchdown, but he fumbled. Another fumble for the second straight week. Mahomes, just like the week before too. He threw one against Baltimore, and he threw one here again. Granted, I mean, he threw one late, and then earlier in the game, right when they're in the red zone, I think it was their first drive, did the no-look throw. Even though the guy was wide open, just throw it in, Patrick. Look it in off the receiver's hands because it was behind him into the lap of a Charger defender. So, yeah, Kansas City, hopefully, obviously I'm not like worried about them like I am the Colts. And I imagine Johns feels the same way. We'll see. But 2 games behind the leader in the division, and you're already down the hole because you just lost. You have a division loss now. And yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone expected the meet. I would have been shocked if I heard myself say this and know it's the truth. But the Chiefs are last place in the AFC West, and it was really mostly their undoing. It's their own fault. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this matchup and how it fares for Kansas City and even the Chargers going forward?
First off, really impressed by the Chargers. I did have them making the playoffs. I did not have them winning this game. So
Yeah,
this bodes well, I think, for my playoff prediction. But yeah, I think that I believe his name is Joe Lombardi, their
yep,
offensive coordinator. Got to give a lot of credit to him. Just been hearing a lot about his influence from the Saints and how he's going to use certain players on the Chargers in very specific ways. And the comparisons that just keep getting brought up over and over are Austin Eckler as their Alvin Kamara and Mike Williams as their Michael Thomas. And so far, I mean, those guys have fit those sort of roles to a T. They've looked really impressive. Justin Herbert, what a performance, 4 touchdowns, played a near perfect game in this one. But also, I think we got to give a lot of credit to Brandon Staley. I know that last year the Rams had the number 1 defense, but I think it'd be really easy for people to chalk it up to a fluke. They had Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, his first year as defensive coordinator, blah, blah, blah. He came out and had a successful game plan against the Chiefs. I mean, looking back, I don't know why. I don't know. I just didn't even take it into account, really, his defensive schemes. But his defensive schemes are very similar to the Belichick and the Todd Bowles schemes that Mahomes has not had the most success against. And that's he doesn't try to stop the run. He puts 2 safeties back and he says, we're going to make sure that you can't beat us over the top, and we're going to allow your run game to have some success. And if you look at that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 100 yards, he did that. But the Chiefs came up, they made big plays. But overall for the Chiefs, I'm not worried like you aren't. I think they played sloppy. I was a little bit surprised because, like I said on the picks, I'm not betting against them after a loss because I figured they'd clean everything up. It didn't look like they did. It seemed like they came out a little sluggish, seemed like they came out a little cocky, maybe. They thought they're the better team. They've dominated the Chargers time since Mahomes has basically come into the league. And then that no look pass, like you said, it was just, I know that Mahomes is known for that kind of stuff, but at some point, those kind of things are going to catch up to you. You're going to make a bad one. And I think it was Romo was even calling the game, and he was like, "Come on, Patrick, you just got to turn your head around, make the easy throw." Like that's one that you don't need to get all flashy about. And so, they came out sloppy. I think they'll clean it up. I think they'll be fine. And it is a little crazy to think that currently they are last in the division. But once again, they're the Chiefs. I wouldn't overreact.
Also, just a side note, because I know if we don't mention it, someone's going to be like, why didn't you mention Josh Gordon? Yes, Josh Gordon signed with the Chiefs. As much as I'm a big component of second chances, this and that, and obviously Josh Gordon's a talent. I'm not going to comment on it and say he's a big signing because, once again, just going off his recent track record, which I know is not fair, but he's had a lot of chances. For the most part, if he needs to show that he can be on the roster for more than a couple weeks, because the last few times it's been like, oh, he's on the Seahawks for a couple weeks, and then he dismisses himself for the team or something. So I mean, I do hope that this is like he's got it all straight now, but we'll see, and we'll see also if it can translate onto the field, because also he hasn't played much football to begin with in a while. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add in regards to Josh Gordon signing, or I just feel like there's not much that hasn't already been said the other times he's been, signed to a team and given a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get all hyped about it. At the end of the day, like you said, he hasn't played a lot of football in quite a long time, and I don't know. I think some people might instantly think that this is a huge signing, but like the last time that Josh Gordon was really super relevant in the NFL was when he was in Cleveland, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. Like it's been a while since he's been a relevant receiver. He has had some decent stretches, but he hasn't been like the guy in a long time. So
I would say maybe New England, but that wouldn't last the whole year. I think towards the end of that, I forgot what happened at the end of New England.
Yeah,
I think he also checked himself into something.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm rooting for the guy to be solid, make a good comeback here. That maybe the Chiefs can be that spot for him. But overall, I mean, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Edwards-Helaire, those guys are still the guys there. And even like McCole Hardman, he knows the playbook, he knows the schemes, he fits in really well. And they just have a lot of solid receivers who aren't amazing, but they do their job when they're called upon, like Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson. Yeah, so we'll see how Josh Gordon fits in. I wouldn't be sitting here expecting him to be like putting up big numbers anytime soon.
Yeah, so all right, so that is the Chiefs and Chargers. We'll see how that goes. But speaking of, John mentioned the Joe Lombardi of New Orleans and Bill Belichick. New England took on the New Orleans Saints, hosted them at Foxborough. However, the Saints went in and beat New England 28-13. Mac Jones threw with 3 picks this game, looking at the numbers. And yeah, if honestly just watching it was kind of an ugly game, that's what it was. Big takeaways. I mean, there's the big 3 INTs next to Mac Jones' name. Really, I would definitely only pin one, maybe 2, but definitely one of them wasn't really his fault. Everyone probably saw it as the one. And I forget the receiver. I think it was Jonnu, but it bounced right off the New England receiver's hands and right into Malcolm Jenkins' lap, like in stride. And then Malcolm Jenkins literally just ran it right back for a pick 6. So that didn't help. But I do credit the Saints defense. Especially the run defense, did not let New England get the run game going, made them one-dimensional. And I think, and once again, everyone wants to point the finger at the quarterback, but I really want to put this on Mac Jones. We saw this last year with Cam Newton. And, Kendrick Bourne had a solid game, but really, and maybe, once again, maybe everyone's still getting used to the system, all their new additions, including Mac. But, yeah, I got concerns in regards to their passing game. No real receiver that scares you. And I think that's why, that's the way New Orleans treated them. they weren't really afraid of that of the deep, just getting killed deep. So we'll see if New England can adjust to that. But for the Saints, it's a ugly win, but a win's a win, and good on Sean Payne and them. Once again, Jameis, I think he had 2 touchdowns, but barely had over 100 yards. So I think Sean Payne's kind of learning how he can manage Jameis from not being, the Jameis of old, running the ball more. I think just giving him, not want to say easy opportunities, but hey, like this, okay, we ran the ball X amount of times. It's going to be a play action, Jameis. Like, either have this or that, or you throw it away or something. So just kind of simplifying. That's what I was looking for, simplifying the game plan for Jameis so he doesn't, go Tropic Thunder and go off script. But good win for the Saints. Tough loss for the Patriots. But John, what are your thoughts in regards to this matchup?
First off, for the Patriots, Mac threw the ball 51 times. I don't think that's what they wanted to do. Damian Harris was dealing with a finger injury, so he only ended up having 6 carries. Running backs besides Damian Harris had a total of 5.
And they lost James White for
James White got hurt.
Time.
So I don't know what was happening on the offensive side of the scheme for the Patriots, but I think the injuries to the running backs are, really clearly bothered them, and maybe they didn't trust anyone behind those guys to really be ready. So they just decided to rely on the pass. Clearly it didn't work. Mac's a rookie. So I wouldn't overreact about him. He had a tough game. Saints defense looked good so far. So, a tough one for him. Obviously, moving forward, I think they're going to try to get the run game more involved so that he's not having to throw 51 times. Because even for like an amazing quarterback, you really don't want your quarterback throwing 51 times. That's a lot. On the Saints side, their defense, they balled out again. They were forcing turnovers. They've really been a key to their 2 wins so far this year. Kamara had a good day. Taysom Hill had a pretty solid performance. Marquez Callaway finally did something more than, 1 catch. So, a decent performance overall for the Saints offense. I am a little concerned, though, not because of Jameis, but it just feels like his yards, like he's not really getting a whole lot going in the passing game. He's 13 for 21, but he only had 128 passing yards. We saw against the Packers, I think he only had about 150. So, like, he's completing passes. He's throwing touchdowns. The 2 wins, he didn't throw any picks, but they're just not getting much in the air, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if maybe they don't trust Jameis to throw things that are deep. I don't know if this is the Sean Payton offense, and he was so used to Drew Brees that they're just keeping everything short. But it doesn't look like there's really a deep ball on this offense. I think the longest reception they had was Kenny Stills for 17 yards, and I didn't watch the game, so I don't know how much of that was after the catch. But it just seems like there needs to be something that changes a little bit here on the Saints offense, because I think some better teams are going to expose them for that if they're not really able to get much going and they don't have, an amazing running game. Because, Alvin Kamara, he had a solid game, 89 yards, but he did it on 24 carries, only 3.7 for carry. And I think that's not the game plan that you typically want for Alvin Kamara. You don't want him getting 24 carries. They like to get a little less, mix in some other guys. And so I don't know. It was a good win for the Saints, but the production offensively just felt a little out of whack. And I would say something to keep an eye on, because I don't know, I haven't been super impressed by their passing attack and their ability to really move the ball.
To be fair, I just want to say, like, devil's advocate a little bit. Play the Packers. I'd say we have a solid secondary with, Jair, Amos, Savage.
Right.
We see that Carolina's got a good defense, especially their secondary. So maybe it just could be just a tough. And then obviously New England, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Joseph. I almost forgot his name. And
right.
They have good. So maybe that's it. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep tabs on, maybe going forward.
Yeah, Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith aren't there. They have in the 2 wins, they got turnovers. They gave them easy field positions. Maybe that's it too. There's a lot of factors here, so I'm not like panicking about it. But something to monitor here is how they're going to look moving forward, because at some point, if Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith have setbacks or something like that, their lack of receiving talent and potentially their lack of ability to get the ball downfield in the passing attack could come back to bite them.
Yeah, so we'll see, because basically these 2 teams very similar in that they have that similar need. So we'll see if any of them do anything going forward to resolve that issue. But going on to the next game, Talk about boring games. We got another boring one here. That was boring to watch, or not really boring, just tough to watch. I don't want to call it boring. But the New York Giants fall again, 0-3, give the Falcons their first win of the season. Falcons win 17-14. In regards to this game, I mean, Giants had opportunities. I think they had multiple. I know Danny Dimes had a strip sack, got strip sack late in the game. I believe Evan Ingram also fumbled as well in his first game back. Like, just not a good start for that offense. I mean, just some sloppiness there. And for the Falcons, I mean, credit the Falcons. I mean, hung tough. It was not a pretty game, and they managed to get their first win. But I mean, if I had to put, I don't want to take away much from the Falcons win, but really, this feels more like a Giants loss. I feel like they had more control of the game throughout the game. They just didn't capitalize when they needed to. And like I just mentioned, had some costly turnovers. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this Giants-Falcons matchup?
It's embarrassing for the Giants, just to be honest. The Falcons are pretty pitiful. They only put up 17 points. And their defense, which has not been able to stop anybody. Tom Brady threw for 5 touchdowns on him. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles put on an offensive clinic against them. The Giants couldn't do anything against it. I mean, Saquon Barkley had a pretty decent game, but I mean, even then, he only averaged 3 yards a carry. Like, there wasn't much happening for them. And yeah, it was pitiful. They're 0-3. I think based on the games they've played so far, they should have beat the Washington, but they missed their opportunities, and they should have beat Atlanta, but they missed their opportunities. And 0-3, like we talked about the Colts, it's a tough hole to come back out of. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm a little bit biased. I think change needs to happen. I think Jason Garrett is not the offensive coordinator they need. I don't know how Giants fans feel about Joe Judge, but I mean, I don't know. I hear a lot about his leadership, and I'm not going to say that he should be fired because it's, I think, year 2, right, for him. But I think, I'd be pissed if I'm Joe Judge. Like, this is not acceptable. Daniel Jones fumbling has to stop. He fumbled twice in this game. He didn't lose either one, but he fumbled twice. So I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I think need to be changed in this organization moving forward. I don't understand why I wouldn't wait any longer for some of these changes, like getting rid of Garrett, like potentially moving on from Daniel Jones. Yeah, after this year, I think they need to make changes.
And they do have 2 first-round picks this next draft, so they have capital to move up or address multiple spots. And also, I just want to point out, they drafted Kadarius Toney at 20. He hasn't seen much of the field. I don't know what's going on there. I think I already mentioned this, but I think the Jets traded for Elijah Vera Tucker, but still, could have gone to Christian Darrisaw. I know he's been out in Minnesota, but a guy
he was still there when they traded back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, sorry, when they traded back, could have gone Christian Darrisaw. I don't know. Yeah, they need to either find someone that can develop or find offensive line talent, because the offensive line is just not, like we mentioned before, just not playing up to, I guess, I don't want to say payday, but just their ability, first-round pick, high second-round pick, and Willie Hernandez. Andrew Thomas has been playing well. And then, sign Nate Solder to a kind of a big contract, and he hasn't so much lived up to the contract. I don't want to talk about another man's money, but I'm just saying, I feel like there's a lot of people that would agree with that statement. So, Giants got a lot of things to question, but I don't think Joe Judge needs to be the thing to change, I think. But I do agree with you. Jason Garrett, offensive line coach, and maybe even GM. I don't want to throw David Gettleman on the bus, but maybe GM. Who knows?
You know how I feel about their draft history.
I mean,
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you've missed on a few picks the last few years, so I would say. Excuse me. So, all right. So that is the Falcons over the Giants. Another team that may need to go through some change is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They fell to the Cincinnati Bengals 24-10. What I really just want to say about this game is Big Ben might be time, man. It might be time. Like, he might need to pull Avonte Davis, or maybe he should have retired at halftime. Like, it was just bad. Like, it reminded me a lot, and it wasn't nearly as catastrophically bad but it reminded me of Peyton's final year playing the Chiefs, threw like 5 picks, and they're just ducks. Like all 5 just bad and great. And once again, Ben did not throw 5 picks this game, but he was not good. Like it's just that plain and simple. I mean, luckily, the only people that are happy about Pittsburgh's offensive performance are Najee Harris owners. That's because he had 14 receptions for 100 yards. I think he had a touchdown too, right? Um,
I don't think
I
so.
forget. They had 1 touchdown, but I don't know if it was him. I'm thinking last week when he scored a touchdown. Man, Najee did not. It was their other tight end.
Yeah,
I mean,
Fire move.
Chase had a solid game too, but regardless, um, just this offense has not taken that next step that we were I think all of us were kind of hoping it would. And once again, I know they're missing Deontay Johnson and Juju is out this game, but I mean, Chase Claypool still had a solid game. They still have a guy like James Washington right behind him. Like I just mentioned, their rookie tight end Pat Freiermuth and Eric Ebron. I know their offensive line's still a work in progress, but yeah, I mean, it's it may be time, maybe Dwayne Haskins' time, maybe time to see if they have anything in him. Like I know it's still early in the season, so they're going to give Ben more time, but just from what we've seen even last year, like I know they started 11-0, but especially towards the end of the season, like it just wasn't looking good for Ben. So that's my main takeaway from this game. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from the Bengals. They played solid. Joe Burrow looked good. It was a good bounce back game from him after that pretty bad performance against the Bears. And once again, though granted the Steelers were missing T.J. Watt, that groin injury, I should be labeled as groin injury expert. Because I forgot who else I mentioned. That was like last year. But regardless, Pittsburgh not in a good spot division wise, especially like we mentioned the Chiefs losing a division game also. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this divisional matchup and just the Steelers going forward?
They defensively, I wasn't too shocked. Like I feel like they did pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Like in the midst of TJ Watt not being there, Joe Burrow only had 172 passing yards. Now he was 14 of 18 for completions, but I think defensively they didn't allow him to light him up. And then Joe Mixon had a pretty good game with 90 yards rushing, but I don't know. I just feel like offensively, like yard wise, right? Like they didn't really kill you. They had, I think, like 260 total yards of offense. And so you'd think that that's a winnable game for you as Pittsburgh. But I talked about this with Mac Jones. Your quarterback throwing 50 times, you don't want that. Ben Roethlisberger threw 58 times, and it wasn't pretty. Their offensive line. It's the bane of their existence right now. You can't win with a bad offensive line. Rushing wise, Najee Harris had 40 yards on the ground rushing, but he had 20 of those on one carry. So that means the other 13 carries equated to 20 yards, which is just pitiful. And so I don't know. I'm a little bit shocked that Ben didn't necessarily call it. They lost to Castro. They lost Pouncey. Villanueva left in free agency. Their whole offensive line's gone. And it just feels like when you have a veteran quarterback like that, like there's a reason that, Tom Brady goes to teams that can protect him. There's a reason that the Patriots always place an emphasis on offensive line and making sure that Brady was standing upright and wasn't getting destroyed the whole game. Big Ben does not have that luxury, and we're seeing it. It's ruining their game plan. It's ruining everything, even potentially the bit of football that Ben has left to play. It's what are you going to do when you have no offensive line protecting you, and you're not really looking that great yourself? So, yeah, I don't want to be that like I told you so guy, right? Because I did pick the Steelers to have a decline here. I can't remember if you picked them in the playoffs. I think maybe we both picked them to miss.
I don't know.
I think you picked them to miss because I'm pretty sure both of us had Cleveland and Baltimore, and I can't imagine that you also had Pittsburgh in there.
That sounds about right.
So I mean, both of us had him missing the playoffs,
Yeah,
I think these are the exact reasons why. And at this point, with the way the divisions, they might finish last. So it's gonna suck if this is the way that Ben goes out. But yeah, not every quarterback can have a happy ending.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, just a thing that just kind of philosophy that I've always kind of seen. It's like, if you're contemplating retirement, especially for football, like basketball, you can get away with it. But football, just how physical the game is, things like that. If your head's already thinking about retiring, like it's like your foot's already out the door.
Right.
I think you just got to commit at that point. And there was the rumors that Ben might retire after, like you just mentioned. So yeah, maybe he should have just. Maybe his mind's not fully in it. I don't want to accuse him of it. I'm just saying, like, maybe it's possible his mind's not in it because we've seen it before with other guys. I'm not excluding like guys like Gronk who retired due to health and things like that very early in his career, but most of the time it doesn't work out when you're kind of one foot in one door, one foot in the other door. So we'll see if they can turn it around. But it's from our predictions, they won't. So, but speaking of a team that has turned it around, Arizona Cardinals go push their undefeated streak to 3 wins. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-19. Wasn't looking pretty though for a second. It was what 7-6 at the end of the half. It was a pretty close game in the halftime, and then it didn't help that they tried a 68-yard kick, got returned. So that was unfortunate. But
It was
they did.
13-7. Jacksonville was leading at
Sorry,
halftime.
13-7. And then, why? I don't know why I didn't include that in the second half box score there. Anyway, darn you, ESPN. That's what I was looking at. That's what I'm blaming. But yeah, in regards to the Cardinals, I mean, it was a good win, especially since they had to come from behind. Kind of a slow start. But once again, their defense, made some plays. That pick six was huge too on the, or it wasn't pick, it was the interception though, off the flea flicker from Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's kind of the same boat I felt like for the Jaguars. I mean, other than they needed a kick return for a touchdown, other than that, I mean, not much going offensively. They did give the ball more to James Robinson, like we asked, 15 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. So maybe be a little more patient with the run game, Urban. But otherwise, I mean, an encouraging performance for Jacksonville, but obviously they still lost to the Cardinals. For the Cardinals, though, we'll see. I think DeAndre Hopkins was dealing with an injury, I believe, because I know he didn't have that great of a game. It was more of a Christian Kirk, A.J. Green type game, which good for A.J. Green. Haven't seen him. I didn't expect much out of him personally coming into the season, so for him to have a 100-plus yard receiving game was just kind of surprising. So, but otherwise, not much else to add in regards to this game. Kind of went as the result was what we expected. But
Right.
John, you have anything to add in regards to this game?
I was a bit surprised. Jacksonville came out firing. Obviously, I mean, Arizona took the lead first, 7-0. Then Jacksonville throws an interception. Trevor Lawrence throws an interception later in the game. And so you think, man, like so here we go. But overall, Jacksonville they hung in there for the first half. Their defense, surprisingly, was forcing a lot of punts. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4. They forced 4 punts in the first half and only allowed that one scoring drive. And then obviously the huge play to end the half. They go for the 68-yard field goal with Matt Prater. He obviously was short, and then Jamal Agnew returns it for a touchdown. So, Jacksonville goes into halftime. They're up 13-7. They get the ball first. Interception. Or sorry, no. The Cardinals get the ball first. So you think, okay, the Cardinals might, do something here. The Jags intercept Kyler Murray. So you're thinking, man, they got some momentum here. Up third, they're going to get the ball. They don't get anything out of it. Arizona gets a field goal, but then they answer with a touchdown. They were up 19-10 at one point in the game, and then everything started to snowball from there. Arizona responds with a touchdown. Then they get that pick six with Byron Murphy. They get another touchdown later in the game, and that's the ball game. But overall, I think that Jacksonville, they absolutely had opportunities to take advantage of this game. Defensively, their defense did all they could to keep them in it. Special teams wise, they got that big return that really energized them going into halftime, gave them a chance, and turnovers just killed them. That pick six was brutal. And then, 2 of the next 3 drives after that, they fumbled to end the game. So tough game for Jacksonville. But they could have won that one. And, yeah, I mean, it was weird because our buddy Kyle, Panda, he was calling this game a trap game for the Cardinals. And for a little bit there, it looked like it was. But Cardinals came through. They won it in the end. And good win for them, 3-0. Jacksonville, you were close. Maybe next time.
Yeah. So, all right. So going to another game. Wins. That definitely went as expected. The Denver Broncos took care of business against the Jets, 26-0. Not much to say on this one. I mean, Jets just not their offensive line not playing great. Their pass protection schemes are, teams are figuring it out. That's how they're getting a lot of free rushers. Can't get the run game going also, and then pass game, Zach Wilson and not a very talented wide receiver group, still kind of finding their way. And then on the flip side, um, like we mentioned, I think before, Jets defense, especially their secondary, not great. So, I mean, I don't have anything really to add on top of what's already been said about this game. Go in for the Broncos, who took care of business. It's unfortunate that they lost KJ Hamler for the rest of the season. We'll see. Hopefully, I feel like that they're like have a similar. They may be the San Francisco of this year, which I'm going to knock on wood, because they've already lost, Jerry Jeudy, who's supposed to be back later in the season, but still, it's a couple injuries kind of looking scary. So hopefully they keep it together there in Denver. But otherwise, took care of business. Really would wish for the Jets they put some points on the board, but they didn't. And you never want to get skunked. But hey, they're not the only team to get skunked. The Dolphins also got skunked last week. So at least not the only team this year. And not even the only team in their division. But regardless, John, any thoughts or takeaways from this game?
No, Broncos took care of business. Jets suck. The only thing I will say for Broncos fans is obviously you're 3-0. You don't pick who you play, but the teams that they've beaten are combined 0 for 9. So let's, don't overreact about your team. Obviously, like I said, this is the way you want to start. You took care of business when you needed to, but let's see how they do, especially against a tough division. Raiders are looking good. Chargers are looking good. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs. So, let's maybe pump the brakes a little bit on the Broncos hype train that I'm already hearing because I have a lot of friends who are Broncos fans.
Yeah, but still a good win for them. Keeping in their division, another team that's 3-0. Maybe people feel they're more legitimate 3-0. The Las Vegas Raiders edge out the Miami Dolphins 31-28 in overtime. Took 2 overtime kicks for them to win that game. Just quick thoughts in regards to this. I mean, it's a good game from Derek Carr and the gang. Surprisingly solid game from Peyton Barber, who's been around forever from Miami. It was a good, tough win for them with Jacoby Brissett.
Tough loss.
It was, loss, sorry. But, Brissett played well. It was just, I want to credit more I almost said Oakland. The Raiders, their offense seems to kind of have it all. They can play the short passing game. They can just play the run the ball short passing game. But then if you start trying to take away, Darren Waller and the short passing game, as of right now, guys like Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, they've proven that they can, make those plays down the field to take advantage of if a defense is doing so. And obviously Derek Carr is hitting them, which, Derek Carr does deserve to be MVP conversation. As of right now, he's been playing great. So not really much else to add. Good win for the Raiders, especially in regards to getting revenge from last year, because remember, they almost beat them last year. But then there's that penalty on Ryan Fitzpatrick, that, the no-look pass and such. So, go win for the Raiders. Good, tough win. But like John said, we'll see if, once again, they're legitimate going forward. But regardless, they do have a little bit more legitimacy. Beat the Ravens, beat Miami. Granted, 2 of those games took overtime. And once again, this team could easily be 0-3 instead of 3-0. But they've closed out games, and now they're 3-0. But John, what are your thoughts in regards to the Raiders' win over the Dolphins?
It was a good one. I don't want to take anything away from the Raiders, but the Dolphins got absolutely robbed in overtime. There was 2 pass interference calls that were not called. I was a bit shocked the refs did not call it. They were like 10 feet away, staring right at it. I don't know. Well, I mean, the first one, I guess it didn't really matter because they were deep in their own territory. It would have put them up, about 40 yards up closer, towards scoring. And they ended up getting there anyway. But once they got to midfield, there was a deep ball to Will Fuller in the end zone. Clear pass interference. They didn't call it. That would have put them on the 1-yard line to basically punch the touchdown in, win the game. Normally, I don't want to say that one call is going to influence the game, but in overtime where it's next touchdown wins, basically, I feel really bad for the Dolphins. I know my brother-in-law is a Dolphins fan, and so I don't know. It's got to suck to lose that way. Once again, don't want to take anything away from the Raiders. They are legitimate. They're a great team, 3-0. They totally totally deserve it. And it's they can't influence the way the refs call the game, but that was pretty brutal to miss that call.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can bounce back. I believe they put him on IR, I think, right? Or they're still
Yeah,
deciding. So he's going to
they
be
put
out
him on.
for, I think they put him on right before the game last week, right?
Yeah,
So
so
he
at
has to be
least
on
3 weeks.
yeah, 3 weeks. So we'll see if they can stay afloat while he's on IR, and if Jacoby can build on his resume, because if there is a backup quarterback you want taking over the spot, it is Jacoby Brissett. He's had some experience doing so in New England and then Indianapolis. So we'll see how they do there. But going on to probably the game of the afternoon, the LA Rams, they stay undefeated in the battle. These two undefeated. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-24. I mean, really, this was just on offense for the Rams. I mean, couldn't get the run game going. This is why they traded for Matthew Stafford. Run game couldn't get going. Matt, we need you to carry the load, basically win this game with your arm. No problem, coach. I got you. It did help. They had some scheme plays. Sean Jackson got behind the defense a few times. Obviously, Cooper Kupp still had a really good game. And they got guys like Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson. And I think a very important stat I saw was Matthew Stafford was 10 for 12 on third downs, which, once again, like third down, especially 3rd and 7+, is basically quarterback down. Like, quarterback, can you make a play? And once again, that's what separates. Jared Goff. Yeah, he made the passes when he had to, made the right reads, but this is why you got Matt Stafford. Everyone's covered, or the play's not going to the script. I can rifle a ball in somewhere. I can make a play that is off script and get us the first down, keep the drive alive, and then etc. So, great win or great performance on that half, and then obviously defense too. Shout out Raheem Morris, a guy we were both high on. Just found ways to not let the Bucs get fully comfortable. I mean, the Bucs, heck, they abandoned the run pretty quickly too, which I think was one of the issues which was one of the reasons why they lost. I think they should have stayed with the run, because the Rams have a smaller defensive front. But credit Raheem Morris, because what he did do was he crowded the box pre-snap, and then he'd have a safety or two bail out at the last second. So they had the numbers, and I'm guessing that's and kind of scare them out of the run. And then they obviously were able to cover the passing game with Jalen Ramsey and such. So, but yeah, I imagine next if they do play in the playoffs next time, Bucs are going to make more of an emphasis just to stay true, call their bluff. But regardless, it's still a good win for the Rams, a good confidence builder going forward. And like I said, too, with Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, I think he's a front runner, to be honest, for the MVP. He's been playing great and showing. And hopefully, I've been one. I think you've also respected Matt Stafford, but not a lot of people been high on Matt Stafford. They've kind of, hard to say, but they saw him with the Lions and kind of tied them both together when there was kind of two separate performances. He's showing us that he's an elite level quarterback, and yeah, I'm happy for him. But regardless, Sean, what were your thoughts in regards to this impressive win for the LA Rams?
My initial, just quick fire thoughts. Matt Stafford, absolutely, in my opinion, front runner for the MVP. I know that a lot of people are really hyped about Kyler Murray, and I think right now he's the betting front runner. But to me, it's got to be Stafford coming out, beating Tampa like this. That's a really big win. That's a statement win. I think that instills a lot more confidence in me and my pick for them to go to the Super Bowl. I know a lot of people are declaring them the best team in the NFL right now. I'm not quite ready to do that because it's only 3 weeks. I know that Tampa and Kansas City haven't had the best 3 weeks, but I mean, last year, the Buccaneers looked even worse to start the year than this one. And look what they ended up doing. So I need a little more out of the Rams before I'd really be able to do that. But overall, I mean, like everything you said, they looked really good. I've always thought that if Matthew Stafford just had a better team, that he'd be amazing. That's why I put him in my top 10 for the quarterbacks list. And he's absolutely showing it. And I think for Sean McVay too, this is probably a bit of a relief because ultimately the sentiment out of the Rams became that Jared Goff was holding him back. And that's that's sort of what it became with Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky, and so far it doesn't look like that might be the case. But for the Rams and Sean McVay, I mean, we're seeing things out of this McVay offense, specifically deep downfield, and just the throws that Stafford's able to make. Even like you said, just some of the throws that he's able to fit into tight windows that Jared Goff couldn't. So it's looking really good for the Rams so far. They've been incredibly impressive. And I agree with you. I thought that their defense had a great scheme here. Bend, don't break. They allowed, almost 500 yards on the game, but they didn't allow points. Only 24. That's enough to get you the win. And Tom Brady, although he threw 100 yards, only one passing touchdown. So really good performance. Just a complete win, I would say, for the Rams.
Yeah, it's a good one for them. And then going on to the last afternoon game, a little bit of a shocker here. The Minnesota Vikings get their first win of the season over the Seattle Seahawks, 30-17. I guess
without Dalvin Cook.
Without Dalvin Cook, too. Alexander Madison had a good game, 26 carries, 112 yards in place of Dalvin. But yeah, really, I feel like the story of this game was Seattle's defense is just could not buy a stop when they really needed one. I mean, Kirk Cousins 30 for 38, only 8 incompletions, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. It was just real easy for most of the game. And then once again, if he wasn't shredding them with the passing game, it was Alexander Madison gashing them in the run game. So yeah, Seattle, I think like we both kind of prefaced in our, it was just, I know I did, but I think you did too. Defense is major concern right now. And I'll give them credit. They're trying everything. They're blitzing guys. They're trying to do exotic stuff, but they just don't have the overall talent. I know they still have Jamal Adams and, Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs, but really just no one else to really, especially in the front four, to make a difference right now. So, and then obviously I know the offense sputtered, which didn't help, but I mean, like we mentioned, I mean, sometimes your offense is going to have can't rely on your offense all the time. There's 3 phases of the game. And especially when your defense is playing like that, they got a lot to figure out. I forget, did you have them in the playoffs? I'm just saying, because I'm really worried long term.
Who? Seattle?
Yeah, I had them sneaking in at 7.
So Seattle, okay. When we initially made our offseason review, I said that they might finish last in the division. That was my hot take for that one. And then I just got worried that I was getting a little too crazy because it's still Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So I also had them sneaking in at 7. But part of me just wishes I stuck with my hot take there because their defense right now is allowing 440 yards a game. That's bad. Like, that's really bad. And that's with Russell Wilson. He is leading the NFL in quarterback rating. So, like, he's doing all he can. Tyler Lockett has had some big games. DK Metcalf had a big game this week. Chris Carson's looked pretty good. And so it's not fully their offense. Their defense just can't stop anybody. And that's not to say that Minnesota's not talented on offense, because they are, but 440 yards a game is terrible. And
without Dalvin Cook, like, it's not like they were even 100%. They had Alexander Madison.
Yeah. So I don't know. Part of me wishes that I'd stuck with my guns and I had taken the Cardinals like I was planning to. But I don't know. I thought I was jumping the gun a little bit on Seattle being not good, but who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around. Every year it seems like they go through a stretch where they just kind of suck. Maybe right now that's just that point. They're going to figure it out.
True. Yeah, they'd like to do that. So, but we'll see what happens there. But good win for the Vikings, getting their first win of the season for them, because they once again a team that they could also be 3-0, but they're 1-2 instead. But going to the last game of the Sunday slate, my Packers and a very exciting Sunday night game hang on to beat the San Francisco 49ers 30-28. Main takeaways from this game was for my Packers offensively. It was nice to see when the run game wasn't, gashing and perfect. I see the pass game, us to be able to rely on the pass. Granted, it was very Devontae Adams heavy. But once again, we did what we had to do. We knew what we had to attack, which was the secondary. So good amount of floor in the game for being patient with that. And then on defense, I mean, really just it was a little bit of Jimmy G. And there's a reason they want to replace Jimmy G is because, sometimes he leaves plays on the field. But I will credit Joe Barry and the defense. Did a few creative things. Didn't let the run game gash us like they has before. Now, granted, San Francisco's got a lot of injuries at running back, so that also could have played into it. But regardless, it was an encouraging performance by their defense, just in general. I'm not going to say we're world beaters or the best defense. I once again, like kind of mentioned with Dallas last week, and just I think Seattle last year, like as long as you're average, you'll be fine. I think that's where we're sticking. So go in for us. And for the 49ers, really need to address corner position badly. I think they also lost Josh Norman that game too, which I didn't even know he was on their team until I watched that game. So unfortunate for him. And otherwise, I don't think it's time to take out Jimmy G yet. I mean, he hasn't done anything wrong, but we'll see how much longer they're patient with him because, yeah, he's executing the offense, but he's not making, the game-winning, game-breaking, game-defining plays that you want, especially I think with the amount of money he's being paid. We forget he's being paid like one of the top guys. So we'll see if he can fix that up. But John, what were your thoughts on the Sunday night thriller?
To me, the keys to the game, very similar to what you said. Packers run defense. I know that they had injuries, but Trey Sermon, he's still a third-round pick running back on an offense that is a run-first offense, renowned for it. The Packers only allowed 67 total rushing yards. I thought that was really impressive. For once again a Packers defense that historically has struggled to stop the run. So I think that was really encouraging. I don't know. I think anyone that had mentioned that maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't care after week one, like it's clear that the guy does, right? He's coming out and he's winning these close games. I did get a little annoyed at all the people trying to recreate the photo of like, oh, there's too much time left on the clock. Like, I mean, it's true, like 37 seconds, but there's that one photo of the guy, unfortunately, against my Cowboys, like a minute 13 left or whatever it was, and he's like, they're all celebrating, but I know there's too much time left. There was so many photos after that game that were like the exact same thing. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like we've seen this before. We know that Aaron Rodgers with any amount of time is capable of making something happen. So that part I thought was a little corny, but that's unrelated to the game. That's just fans and ESPN and Bleacher Report reposting all those things. In the game itself, just a good win for the Packers. Mason Crosby coming up clutch once again. He's that guy. He does that. And overall, I agree with you. I don't think it's quite time for Trey Lance to step in because the offense is still working. They're 2-1. No reason to panic. But I do think the thought is potentially starting to enter Shanahan, maybe some other people's minds of what do we think Trey Lance could provide to this team? Do we think he could potentially get us maybe a little bit more involved in the run game if it's struggling or something along those lines. So, yeah, and I agree with you too. They need to address corner. It's time to call Richard Sherman. I know that he left after this or after last year and the whole injuries and all that kind of stuff, but they're decimated at corner and they need something. The fact that they had to sign Josh Norman out of desperation and now he's hurt, like you need to address it. Sherman, I think today met with the Buccaneers, so you need to call him up and say, "Listen, Sherm, you're familiar with us. Just come back," because they don't have anybody at corner.
Yeah, I will say though, just maybe in their defense, don't know when I know he had some sort of off-season thing go on. So
yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe that's why they're hesitant to do so. But we'll see how that if he signs with the team or with anybody, how that transpires. But once again, good win for my Packers. Get that 49ers. Finally get a win on the 49ers because they've really been the bane of our existence for even going back to the Colin Kaepernick days. But alrighty, going to the final game of the week. The Dallas Cowboys took care of business against the Philadelphia Eagles, 41-21. Unfortunately for me, they did. The defense played great, but not great enough for me. But that's okay. It's my own fault. In fantasy, Jalen Hurts had one too many touchdowns. But regardless, I mean, this was really almost all three phases for Dallas. Offense executed. We saw Zeke kind of have a good game, finally a game that he can hang his hat on. That we can say that Zeke, 95 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, Dak was solid. Only quote-unquote mistake was that strip sack fumble touchdown that landed right in Fletcher Cox's hands, but that was early in the game. And then on the flip side, like you mentioned before, I mean, the defense was very solid, very good, really, but solid. And, I mean, with the pick six by Trevon Diggs, and even with, I think, Michael Parsons was still playing out of position this game, technically. But yeah, I mean, uh, yeah. So I mean, I just want to say that a good performance by Dallas. In regards to Philly, like I mentioned, I had concerns about their pass game going into the season. We're starting to see it. Dallas was kind of all over it. So credit Dan Quinn too in that game because I wasn't very confident in Dan Quinn, but I think we're starting to see like this scheme was what Dallas was built for, and these players are
Right.
thriving in that scheme. And like we mentioned before, trying to fit last year, they're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Didn't work. Now it's I want to say light years better, but it feels better. Like last game, you are getting stops. It was Philly was actually I suppose last year where teams were just moving the ball up and down with ease. This year, there's a lot more stops and uncertainty for the offense. So good win for Dallas. Tough loss for Philly. I mean Jalen Hurts. I mean I will say very good leader. He already mentioned, hey, like it's like a dump. You take it in the toilet and you just got to flush it out and move on. That's what they have to do. Is just yeah, that's what they got. They just got to move on from that game, learn from it, move on. So we'll see if they do so. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to your Cowboys win and what it means going forward?
Obviously, it was really impressive. I love beating the Eagles. I hate them. Not gonna sugarcoat it. That's the biggest rivalry for me as a Cowboys fan, and that's the only team I will never root for in any game at all. So I love beating them. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that this defense is light years better, and that's not because they're an elite defense because they're not by any means. But that's just shows how bad they were last year. It was the second worst defense in franchise history, second to only the first ever team the Dallas Cowboys had, where their defense was, I mean, literally just awful because they were a new team. Um, so last year they were just awful. This year they're forcing turnovers. They're getting stops when they need to, and I think the young guys are really the big difference makers right now. Osa Odigizua, defensive tackle, he had a really good game for them. Micah Parsons, I mean, the guy he's a freak. He like I said last week, I think he's the best defensive player on the Cowboys. He's just a monster. Trevon Diggs, I mean, he's really starting to come into his own. I think the key for me is he looks a lot more confident this year in himself. He had a lot of good moments last year, but this year it feels like he's starting to walk in that sort of, number one corner on a team confidence where, you understand like you got to be the guy, you got to stop the opposing team's top receivers. And I think that even just like the mental aspect of the game for him is starting to develop because Jalen Hurts just wasn't really fooling anybody with what he was doing. It seemed like he was really locked in on certain guys, and it was pretty obvious what he was going to do. So yeah, good win for the Cowboys. I'm glad that Tony Pollard once again is still getting involved. Zeke did have a really good game, 17 carries, 95 for 2 touchdowns. But I think Tony Pollard, he's just a really good running back. I love to see him continue to get involved as the year goes on. Um, and overall, I mean, just the way that Dallas has played through 3 games so far and the struggles that the rest of the division is having, I'm not trying to speak too soon, but I would say if they continue to play like this, there should be no excuse if they don't win this division. I'm not going to say they're going to win it, but the way they're playing, it's theirs to lose, really. And so once again, I'm not claiming they're going to win it. I'm not going to predict they're going to win it. I'm not going to say they're the favorites right now. But to me, as a Cowboys fan, there is no excuse for them to lose this division the way they're playing, because they're looking good. Let's hope they can keep it up. Honestly,
I'm not sure if you want me to say what I want to say is on my mind, but yeah, I mean, I would say they're the favorites right now. Just the way the division's looking. Washington, their defense, what's going on with their defense? We don't know what's going on with Giants' offense is kind of a mess right now. Their defense is okay. And then Philly, we just saw. I mean, obviously Dallas is better than Philly right now. Philly's still figuring things out on offense, passing wise, and excuse me, and even defense, like secondary wise. I mean, like you mentioned, Dak was really passing wise was able to do whatever he wanted.
yeah,
I think he threw it at six or eight different receivers. Right? Let me look
I think it was 8.
Regardless, spread the ball around with ease. Sorry, I'm gonna pull it up because it's gonna bother me. So 21 completions.
Yeah, it was 8.
8 different guys, like 8 different guys for 21 completions. Like Amari Cooper, like fantasy wise, not a fun night unless you're a Dalton Schultz owner. But
or Zeke owner, because best game of the year for him so far.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, but I mean, yeah, passing game wise, otherwise, like it was, like this, it did not match the scoreboard. But so good win for Dallas, 2-1, and that's on top of their division now for the NFC East.
I just want to add this because there was plenty of Eagles fans who were responding to me throughout the last 2 weeks in certain ways that I was like, okay, let's not overreact. I mean, I wasn't going to say that they were garbage, but there's plenty of Eagles fans. Like I heard after week 2, there was one guy who said that the Eagles were far and away the best team in the NFC East, and I was like,
Oof.
you have to be an Eagles fan if you're saying that. They
Can't
beat
say
the
far and away.
Falcons.
Yeah.
They beat the Falcons and they lost to the 49ers. It was a close one, but I mean, come on, they're 1-1. Like, let's not overreact. And I think that's a lesson for everybody. Do not overreact about early stuff because things are going to become more clear later on in the year. And I think the big thing that became clear is the trenches for them are still potentially an issue. Like we've talked about, their offensive line, they're getting older. They've had some injuries. The left side is not super solidified. And the defensive line, I will say though, Javon Hargrave is a beast. I don't know if you watched the game. That
Yeah.
guy's a monster.
I said they do. Like I wanted him for Green Bay. I think they got him
Yeah.
last year, and of course we
And
didn't
I
get him,
mean,
but
it does suck as a Cowboys fan because the guys I have the least confidence in, surprisingly, is not Terrence Steele right now. It's Connor Williams and Tyler Biotish, and Javon Hargrave he manhandled them. So did Vita Vea. So I mean, they got that go. Even then, their defensive line, like you said, they weren't able to get a whole lot of pressure on Dak, and that might be because Brandon Graham, like we talked about, he's out.
yeah. So we'll see what happens there with Philly. But yeah, prime example too, because once again, like especially for me, it was after week 2. Like when you couldn't take advantage of a 49ers secondary that we just talked about how it's not good. Like once again, we had concerns about their passing game. That for me, that confirmed. I was like, okay, their passing game is what I thought it was going into the season. It's not progressed, not there. So yeah, but we'll see.
And I forgot to mention this too. Nick Sirianni, I don't know what he was doing in that game. If you look at the box score here, the Eagles, they ran the ball 12 times. 9 of those were Jalen Hurts. I imagine that most of those were not designed runs. They gave Miles Sanders 2 carries, and he got 27 yards on those 2 carries. That's 13 and a half a carry. Why not run the ball more?
I mean, I don't know. He said that the game script got away from them, but I mean,
if we look early, the Cowboys go up 7-0. Then the Eagles get that quick fumble touchdown after Jalen Hurts throws the pick, so it's 7-7.
Yeah.
They forced the 4th down. They didn't get the QB sneak, so then they get the ball back, and they punt the ball after 3 plays. Dallas goes up.
And on those 3 plays, I'm looking around. They pass on all 3 of those plays.
Yeah, and then
Dallas scores.
Dallas gets a touchdown, so now they're at 4. And then once again, the next one, they pass on 1st down. Jalen Hurts runs. Well, I don't know if it was a design run or what. He lost 2 yards. I imagine that maybe he was scrambling or something.
Yeah, maybe it's an option.
And then the 3rd down, 3rd and 3, once again, pass incomplete. They punt. So at that point, then Dallas goes up 20-7, and I could start to hear it. But still, it's the first half. 4 plays, punt, 5 plays, punt. You're down 20-7, and then
like the first drive of the second quarter. So that was just quarter 1, down 7-20. First play after Dallas scores to go up 20-7. Miles Sanders 24-yard run, and then after that, Jalen Hurts runs for 2 yards. But then they don't, and they do give Miles Sanders a 3-yard run, and then after that they never gave Miles Sanders the run again. Because then Dallas went 3 and out again, and granted it was the end of the half, so I can see why they passed. But even to come out at the beginning, maybe game script went ahead. But 1 second, I lost John.